Hi everyone, it's Julie from Right Little Madam here. I've just jumped on today with a bit of a tip for you. I'm sorry I'm a little bit in the shadows here. I'm in my office and struggling to get the light in, but I hope you can see me okay. And this tip is around knowing the magazines that you might want to pitch some work to. If you've ever listened to anything I've said, any of my videos and things, you will hear me talking about how you need to understand who your audience is to be able to write for them. Otherwise, if you don't know who they are, how do you know what to write? And that's a real fundamental skill of writing, and particularly if you want to get your feature in the press. But what is just as important is understanding the publications that you're pitching to. Because if you don't, and you pitch something that isn't correct, you're never going to get it published. And I just want to use a little exercise to show you how to do that today, because the one thing that you have to do if you're going to pitch to magazines is actually read magazines, and particularly the ones that you're going to pitch to, but all magazines really, you've got, or blogs or whatever it is that you're pitching to, or wherever you want to get your coverage, you need to be reading those platforms and those magazines. You've got to be a reader to be able to be a writer, which that doesn't come naturally to everybody now, because we know from the dwindling sale of magazines that not everybody's reading publications anymore. People tend to go online. So it doesn't really matter where you're pitching to, where you want your work to feature, you've still got to know about that place. But I'm going to show you a technique now to understand a little bit more about a magazine that you might want to pitch to. And to do this, I'm going to have to swizzle around the camera, so just bear with me, please. Okay, so what I've got here is Psychologies Magazine. And the reason I've chosen this one is because I know quite a few clients that I work with who are in the coaching, self-care, well-being sort of industry, read Psychologies and would love to be featured in Psychologies. So I thought we'd start with this one. So if I was pitching to this magazine, I would want to know the ins and outs of it. What do the photographs look like? What style do they write in? What tone do they write in? How long are the features? Everything you could think of, really. So what I would do, and I've started it already, is I'd get myself something that looks like this. So this, as you can see, is just a grid of squares. I know you can't see the writing on it at the moment, but it's just to give you an example. When you're working on a magazine, this is called the flat plan. And basically, it's just a flat plan of the magazine. So each one of these little squares is a page in the magazine. And when you're an editor, you fill in the squares really with what features are that you're running on those pages this issue. Now it's on a publication, on a magazine. Now this would all be done online. We've got software to deal with this. But obviously, as a business owner in your own little office, you don't. So you could just draw something like this on a piece of paper. Just see which magazine you're going to be looking at, how many pages it's got, and draw a diagram accordingly. So just send it back to the magazine. Take a really good look at the front cover, because this will give you a real indication of the sorts of things that are in a magazine. But not just that, it will help you when it comes to writing headlines for your features or your blogs, because the words that go on a front cover like this are pretty much the most important words in the magazine, just as the picture is the most important picture, because this is what will get people to buy. And people sit into two camps. People like me very much look at the words and think, is there anything in those words that relates to me? And if there is, I'll probably buy it. Some people just look at the image and say, oh, that's an image of X, Y and Z. I'm really interested in her or it or whatever it is. I'm going to buy that magazine. So that's what the front cover does. It's enticing people to buy. But you can use it. If you look at that big line at the bottom there, reinvent your life. So if you're a coach and you're talking about writing a feature or a blog that is about somebody changing their lives and doing something different, that is a fantastic heading, reinvent your life. In fact, it'd be better if it said how to reinvent your life for your blog or your feature. So I think there's the one behind this as well. Yeah, I don't know if you can see in this corner, 30 days to a creative life, which again is, if you were writing a feature that was called that, or something like how to become creative in 30 days, then that would be a really good pitch to send to somebody. So, why can't I stick to my goals? that could be why you can't stick to your goals if you're writing a feature about people not getting to the end of their vision. You know, how to change your job, find your vocation and launch a second career. That could be a fantastic headline for a feature. So, you know, don't just dismiss the front covers, have a good look at them. And then when you've done that, what I would do is, using my squares, I would start looking through the magazine. I'm not going to do this in any great detail because I don't want to keep you on here forever. Sorry, I'm having to do this on my left-handed. I'm not left-handed. So when you first open the magazine, you get to this spread. And if you look at my little grid here, magazines always start on a single page. That's the cover there. That's where that starts. This flat plan's been printed, so everything is double pages, but obviously that isn't really a page. So you start on the cover, then I turn the page, and this is what comes next. So that's an advert. And then what comes next after that? Well, the contents. So I'd write that down. So this is what I would do if I were you. I'd get this little grid, and I start writing down. That does say contents. My writing is terrible. And then if I go over the page, it's a follow-on of the contents page. Then you get another ad. Then you get this, which is actually called the final panel. And you'll see this is where all the contact details for the journalist and whoever works on the magazine sits. And you tend to get this as well, the contributor information. Now, let me have a look at this. Yeah, you'll find, like with this here, it tells you who the editorial team are. But it very rarely these days tells you their contact details. But one good little trick is if you go down to the advertising department here, they've always got their certainly their email address on here. They've got their telephone numbers as well. And when you work for a big company like this one will be, the can you see there that one? So she commercial director nikki.peterson@tigerbeermedia.co.uk. So the nikki.peterson is what's important there, because if you go back up, if you wanted to contact, for instance, the features editor, it would be elizabeth.heathcote at tigerbeermedia.co.uk. So they follow a pattern. So if you're struggling to get hold of the editor because you can't find their details, just look at the advertising details and follow the same the way it's set out there. Just change the name for the name of the person that you want to contact. That should be straightforward. And then on the next page we've got what we call the welcome, which is the editor saying hello and what's in the magazine. And then you have letters. So I'm still writing this down on here. I've got letters there. And go over the page, and it's another advert. You write that on your list. And then we come to this section called the fix, which I've put here. So it starts on a single. And the fix goes on for quite some pages. I think it's at least 5 or 6. And it really is just short stories. Now, this is not the sort of place, unless the journalist invites you in to write a top tip or an expert little piece in these pages, you're probably not going to be pitching for these pages, really. These are just what we call the front section, just to get people's attention. It's a quick read at the start. People don't get bogged down quickly with long features to read. They sort of want to, the editors are trying to get you into the magazine quickly, keep your attention, give you lots of things to read. Then we've got another ad. On it goes, another ad, and then we've got a column, and then another ad, and then this is a how-to actually. So just be writing it down on here. I've got to, where am I? Yeah, how-to now. I've got to there. So went from an ad to a how-to. This is how to say you're sorry. And then when you slip over to the next page, what you get next is an interview. This is a celebrity interview. So what's happened until this point is the front section's been running, keeping you interested and having all that dipping in and out things, and then you get to the main body of the magazine, and it starts with a celebrity interview. I think that's 4 pages. Yep. And then it goes to a feature called A Daydream Believer, and this is all about daydreaming, why it's good to daydream. It's just a feature with some information on there. Then you get another ad, and then it's another column. So go through the magazine like that, writing it all in on this sheet of paper that you will have created for yourself. And then what you need to do is sit down and have a really good look at this to see what sort of features and columns and news stories they're running, because that gives you a really clear idea of the audience that they're trying to serve and the sorts of features they run, the tone that it's in, the style that it's in, and that should tell you the sorts of things they want from you and the sorts of things they don't. So once you've got to the end of this, if you'd had an idea, for instance, for top tips on feng shui in your office, but it's dead obvious that they don't run features like that in here, then it's not going to work. So you need to ditch that idea and choose something else. Just fizzling your back round. Oh, look, if I stand there, I look like I'm wearing a little hat. So that was just a real quick introduction to how much detail you need to know a magazine in. I, as an editor, have had people pitch to me ideas that were just completely irrelevant. I'd be working on a gardening magazine and they'd pitch me saying, I've got a great idea for a motoring feature. Well, that ain't going to go in a gardening magazine. And you're not really doing yourself many favours if you do that. They're certainly, they're not going to get past editors' eyes. So there is no point. It's just a waste of everybody's time. The best thing to do is really get to know the magazine you're interested in pitching to, using the techniques I've just shown you, and then pitch appropriately. But take your time over it. That magazine, if I was going to look through that magazine as an experienced journalist, it would still take me some time to read it, have a good look at what they're covering, what sorts of words they use, what sort of people they use, and decide whether it was something that I could be involved with, which is fortunate for me. So there you have it. Don't want to go on any longer because that would just be boring for you. But this is all sorts of things I cover in my flagship online course, 6 Weeks to Famous. That'll be starting in 2 or 3 weeks' time. You get all the cheat sheets and everything that I've just shown you, and lots of advice and tips on how to pitch to the press and how to become famous with your business. So details of that will be coming out soon enough, and they'll be on my Facebook page, so watch out for that. Have a great day, everybody. The sun is shining now, so I might go sit in the garden for a minute. Oh, the joys of a freelance life. See you again, guys. Bye.